that objectively. The only objectives, the way that you can judge something that has so many different variables, like something like a URL or an exhibition match, is to either make time a factor, and be really strict with the time, and then everybody starts with 100 points. And then if you go over time, right? If you can't execute within time, right? Then it's like, okay, there's a deduction, right? If there's a certain expectation of like, you had to accomplish certain goals within there, like you had to reach certain waypoints, or you had to use certain ideas that you didn't get until you got there, or you had certain things that you had to execute before you got there, so you still had a period of time to put your joint together, but you had to incorporate X, Y, Z, and then you had somebody who knew what that was. Maybe the crowd don't even got to know, but the dudes who actually put those kind of waypoints together understand, like, yeah, he or she didn't do that, and you make it very clear about what it's supposed to be. Then you can have a different point. Then you can start to judge. Then you can start to say, like, yeah, he or she specifically didn't do this, or he or she specifically went over time. Some people gonna look at those constraints and be like, nah, I'm not fucking with that, and you lost. Most of the times, because there's no governing body which is very strict about implanting the rules, and they don't give a fuck who you are, they're not worried. The success of the organization isn't necessarily tied to one or two individuals, and you kind of always got to cater to make them happy. So that's why I understand. I gave a Hakuho example earlier and why them dudes hate him. But at the end of the day, if Hakuho left sumo, there's still going to be sumo wrestling, right? Sumo wrestling has been around for 1,000 years, right? And the way they're building it and the way they're structuring it, yeah, it might be some foo-foo in there, but the plan is to let it live on for another 1,000 years. And the way they do that is just being like, I don't give no fuck who you are. You can be Michael Jordan. You're not the NBA. We still gonna be here, right? And I think there has to be a certain strength and a certain strictness in the associations that set up these leagues to stand on that shit, right? Not to say that they don't, and not to say that they don't operate at a certain level of strictness now, because they're very much so penal. Once Smack sets some rules and some dudes go against that shit, you see dudes get banned, they get penalized, they get put out of shit. But it's more so for behavioral shit or safety shit. But if you think about if somebody actually planted a rule set and stood on it and said, hey man, you go against these rules, you're not getting that check. You made it pot specific, where it's like, nigga, to get this money, you're not finna just get paid to come and show up. Like, you got to get paid. You get paid when you win. That offsets all kinds of shit. That gives you a certain power to establish and put in affect all kinds of shit. Not enough to where you lose the spontaneity of it, but y'all don't know what the fuck these niggas finna say anyway, right? So for you, it don't matter. Like, they could have wrote that shit. They could have freestyled it. They could have wrote it in the call on the way to URL, or they could have wrote that shit 10 years ago. You don't know. So to say like, oh, it's going to lose the spontaneity, you don't know what that dude finna say. But even with that said, you can still retain that aspect of it, the freedom of it, but still put in a couple things to make it more competitive, to make it objectively competitive. So I think it can be done. Folks have done it before, and it's not hard to do it with what we do as rappers either.